energy that's moving through space and shaping our world. So over in Papua New Guinea, I used sound and rhythm to convey these principles and connecting them to the oral transitions, which is much the same as the learning that I was learning in Te Ao Māori back here in Aotearoa. So it's that change around, it's that shift of how we move and how we teach. We were doing things with drumming patterns, and the way that our Indigenous communities, the way our Indigenous hapori have always understood vibration and resonance and harmonics. And so in doing so, we weren't not just introducing something foreign, we were revealing a scientific language that had always been there. And this is encoding in our Indigenous ways of knowing. So for me, coming back from those first 2 trips and going, no, it's the way I'm looking at it, because I'm educated in that Western way of being. And so going to our kura kaupapa, this is why I got a lot of time for our kura kaupapa kids, because they're learning in our Te Ao Māori way, and they're formalizing and formulating and shaping a foundation that's holistic in its whakaaro, holistic in the way that it sees things, the way that it that we perceive of this world around us and how we look at these things. So I noticed one fact that stands the test of time today, which is we going from a Western view and then trying to re-educate, unlearn and relearn into an Indigenous view is much harder, and it actually feels like you're stifled. You're now put into a box. Going the other way, which is a holistic way of actually viewing the whole, and then now doing that alignment with our Western practices and our Western view, much easier. So this was a discovery over years, and especially over those 15 years in trades training, trades education, because I was working with career changes people who were going from on the shovel bro into the radar or onto electromagnetics or into concrete structural and testing and investigation methodologies, non-destructive testing methodologies. So it was that sort of thing. And then I come back home, as you do when you travel the world and you're out there doing that stuff, and you come back home, and I come back to the marae and I start doing trainings out in our marae, and especially with our Rautaki Matiko strategy, mahi. And I was noticing that it's just similar stuff. So I was like, no, Ekau, I need some education here. I need to now I need to sit at the feet, I need to learn. So my uncles took me into the bush, especially with eddy currents and the utilization of some of those technologies, and started learning those scientific principles. I broke apart all my knowledge in this space, so just completely broke it all apart and then reconstructed. And that's where I myself, from a self connection point of view and a self-determination point of view, really started to understand the whole of these things that we were learning. I've got so many more, but I don't want to hog the mic, and I know that time ticks. I especially want to talk about radar and interferometry and some of the learnings there, especially about ensuring that we're making knowledge accessible. But I will pass the mic. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora mo e nā whakaaro me nā kōrero, Ellie. Coming over to you now, Shannon. Yeah, really keen to hear about some of the awesome work that Tōnui Collab in particular is doing in Te Tairāwhiti and Turanganui a Kiwa. You're well experienced in this space, and the work that you're doing and empowering our rangatahi in particular in this education space is really exemplar. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Shannon, and would love to hear about Pāhangaro as well in your kōrero too.
Oh, tēnā koe, Lee. Well, my mind's blown, Ellie. I'm like writing notes as I go. But I guess kind of coming back to the kōrero about Indigenous EdTech, and maybe even the reframing of there's Indigenous EdTech and then there is the use of EdTech in Indigenous education. And so with our mahi at Tōnui Collab, I think what we approach it as is considering the applications of products. So yay, by Māori for Māori, we need to see more of that. So if we can encourage more Māori to be product developers who are creating product for tauira Māori, then that is amazing. And there's definitely a dire need, because as we talk about the risks and challenges, having to adapt the usability can be a struggle. But additionally, when we're talking about Indigenous education, and what that means for EdTech, we're often thinking about how we can utilise or adapt technologies in a considered way, so that it serves our community or our hapuri, and validates our Indigenous ways of knowing, sharing, being, doing on our terms. And so talking to the mahi that tōnui does, one of our kaupapa is Pāhangaro, and it's about 3 years old, and it's kind of this, it's a concept or a kaupapa that I really love, because it is a blending of technology and also kind of a celebration of taonga tuku iho. So Pāhangaro is a kaupapa where tōnui partners with marae in the tairāwhiti, and we go and set up a computer lab within the marae. We have haukainga coming in sharing pūrākau. We wānanga about the pūrākau and the values and experiences we have. We also expose tamariki to the diversity of digital technologies, and have wānanga about what it looks like to be celebrating te ao Māori, but also considering the use of or the access to this digital content. So our tamariki will jump in VR headsets, they'll play games, they'll experience things, they'll go, you know, swimming with the whales in VR, but then they'll come back and we'll introduce them to tools so that they can create content in that VR space that celebrates pūrākau, that is really a personal response that they've created, personal but collaborative in that space. And then it's through Pāhangaro that we're also inviting whānau to come in and hear about the opportunities in tech, and learn about what they themselves and or their tamariki might be able to do as a hobby or as a career, and what the sort of pathways are into that. It also enables us to meet with whānau to address like fundamental digital inequity issues. So do we have the adequate devices? Do we have the connectivity? And I guess the intent for the whāinga for Pāhangaro is that we're preparing our tamariki, our mokopuna, to be digital creators, conscious creators, where they're actively shaping it with their own voices and stories and creativity, and not being passive consumers in those spaces. But that we also don't just dive headlong into things without considering the risks. And through this kaupapa, and it's great to see the faces coming up on here, one of the things that we also do is either inviting Māori who work in tech to come in, to video in, or we use some of the amazing resources that Hapuri Mataheko have created around video interviews to create greater visibility of Māori who are working in tech already, so that our tamariki and their whānau can see what those careers look like. A challenge in that space is, like I said, that we're mostly trying to adapt and utilise EdTech tools that maybe haven't been developed from an Indigenous perspective, and that sometimes creates challenges. Hopefully we all know on the call that when that tech is the tool, and it can be both an enabler, but it can be an inhibitor. And so how we do these things is the how we use it, the pedagogy around it, that kind of thing. But we're seeing a growing number of Māori EdTech owners or product developers, and that makes the mahi that we do, especially working with kura Māori as far as EdTech tools that actually have the reo in them, is really, really valuable and does change the accessibility.
Yeah, kia ora Shannon, tēnā kōrua, awesome kōrero and whakaaro within there. Staying with you, Shannon, moving to the next section. I mean, again, there's so much more that can be said, obviously, in this space, but I'm really keen now to move along to some of the risks and challenges that you're seeing. Shannon, I know you've got a couple already that you well, that we all know exist, but maybe keen to hear some of the more prominent ones in your world and your space at the moment in terms of risks and challenges. What are you seeing?
There are some risks, and I always try to look at risks as an opportunity for us to come up with solutions. And so always bundling them that way. But a risk is that we have to make compromises sometimes in using technologies. So where there are language barriers for using the technology. So if we don't have EdTech tools that actually have Reo Māori as a primary language on the tool, then that means that for our tauira that are in Māori medium schools or kura, so kura kaupapa, then they have to sort of ultimately make that compromise if they want to access the resource. So that becomes one of the risks, is the compromising that we have to make. The additional one more that I'd add, because it's kind of fundamental, and I think sometimes we think we've moved past that, but when we're talking about EdTech and we're talking about technology and education, that digital inclusion still an issue. So we still do not have adequate hardware in our homes, in our kura. We don't have adequate accessible connectivity in some spaces. And so while we're driving forward, and we should absolutely be having conversations about AI literacy and what it means in the education space with AI coming in, and that it can be a powerful resource and support, and that there can also be challenges there, we still have kura who are really disadvantaged by their lack of access to adequate hardware and connectivity.
Yeah, so digital equity is a real issue for us in Aotearoa New Zealand today in so many ways, and so I'm really glad that you've highlighted that particular challenge, Shannon. Coming back to you, Ali, what would you like to add to the discussion at the minute? Risks and challenges. I know you've got a few. I'll leave
Look,
it to you.
I did. I wrote down a few, but no, I want to tautoko our sis regarding digital equity versus digital colonisation. So digital equity is still a massive issue across the motu. We all know that. That's why we're all hard out working at it. And from the digital colonisation side of it, just from a leadership point of view, without Māori-led governance, we risk becoming consumers rather than the creators of the tech. And this is something that we're all, and Shannon's just made mention of it just before as well, so I just want to tautoko that hard out. But this is about us ensuring that the digital infrastructure is in place, policies in place, and that the systems are shaped by Māori values rather than imposed Western paradigms. And this is an important one. I know we all know, but I'm about the do of the no near. So as are the rest of you, because that's why you're all pretty choice. The other big one is we still have tokenism and extractive partnerships in this space, big time, hard out. And so there's that risk of non-Māori organisations and government agencies using Māori participation as that tick box exercise. That's still happening. We think it's all over e kao. We know that actually now more than ever, don't even get me started, boundaries here, just from a solve perspective for engagement, and that we need to ensure that our Māori expertise and leadership are respected, preventing that extraction of knowledge without the tangible benefits to Māori communities. There's a whole bunch of other kōrero about data sovereignty and AI ethics and all of that, but I agree with Shannon, I agree with the sis that there is some fundamental foundational stuff that we need to nail before we go down through all of that, but knowing that that's there. So we were just trying to navigate, that's a daily navigation there as we continue. And then, sorry, just one more thing, the balancing of the innovation and cultural integrity. That's that's a whole nother kōrero ne. That's a wānanga. Let's go on the marae and have and have that. I know we're all having that conversation as many of us who continually walk this, and the fine line between with tikanga and innovation and forward movement and evolution, and as we're continuing, that's just daily. So I've got a few thoughts there. That's once again, that's a whole nother wānanga all on itself. And as we've seen as well when we've run the futures wānanga, bro, that kept coming up. So yeah, pai ana. I know I ramble on, but I'm so, like the rest of you, I'm just so into this, so passionate.
Appreciate your kōrero and expertise there. Well, both of you, thank you so much for those insights and reflections. I did want to add to the kōrero the importance of visibility and representation of our people in this space. That includes not just us as individuals, but also Pākihi as well. So the more, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And so representation is absolutely important for future generations as well that are wanting to potentially look into this space. And also our, dare I say it, our career switches as well, our career transitioners. That's important for them to see us, and so that they can be us. Now I'm coming back to Shannon. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ehua, just for a bit of an update on what's happening in the EdTech NZ camp at the minute. I'm really keen if you could just kind of tell us what it is first, and then you can give us the update. Kia ora, Ehua.
Yeah, kia ora. Ngā mihi. So yeah, using this opportunity to also talk about some other mahi I do. So I'm on the Council for EdTech NZ, which is part of the NZ Tech ecosystem. So within NZ Tech, there's about 15 communities or alliances, you know, from fintech to agritech, and one of the alliances or community is EdTech New Zealand. And so our aim is to empower learning with technology that embodies like our unique identity, the identity of those of us here in Aotearoa. And to that end, our membership consists of both EdTech companies, so those that are creating the product, and also the users of technology. So that ranges from government bodies who are managing the procurement onto sort of the coalface of our kaiako in the classroom. And that's who makes up the membership of EdTech NZ. And when it comes to our hapori of Māori EdTech, we've got a growing number of Māori product developers. And I can see some of you on the call, and I'm semi-nervous about making some call-outs because I also don't want to miss some. Lots of Māori EdTech are in the startup and small business space, but we additionally have Māori EdTech who are designing products and successfully exporting them into the international market. Or even, I think there'd been a number of us who would probably reframe the exporting to growing and supporting in the international market. And so the numbers sit at around that there's 150 EdTech companies led out of New Zealand, and that's from those startups to those established companies. And I don't know the number that we would identify as Māori EdTech, but because Māori EdTech predominantly are sitting in that startup and or small space, it's really important for us to understand how we can best support Māori EdTech. And the focus this year for 2025 for EdTech continues to be around connecting and supporting, building opportunities for people to network, but also a key focus is around their export and supporting EdTech on how they can grow onto that international stage. So if that's the kind of thing that interests you, then it is worth checking out EdTech NZ. And the other piece that I kind of wanted to talk to today is because as we're talking about what it looks like for EdTech for Māori learners, one of the things that we're really conscious of, and we're conscious of this in Māori business as well, and for our hapori and for our whānui, is how do we ensure that if we're encouraging people to use technologies that we're keeping each other safe? Because data sovereignty is a key issue, making sure that there's security and privacy around data is key, and yet we are also encouraging in the education space to be optimizing the use of tech when it enhances learning. And that means that we need to consider how safe the technology is that we're bringing into the classrooms. So EdTech NZ is part of an initiative alongside the Ministry of Education and alongside sort of allies in both Australia and New Zealand on doing a initiative for safer technology for schools. And it's one way to kind of provide some guidance and support for those end users, for school leaders, for teachers, and ultimately for parents to have an awareness of what hardware their tamariki are accessing and whether they feel comfortable with them being in those spaces. So EdTech NZ hosts events both inline and on and in person throughout the year. So you can find out more about them on their website and sign up for their newsletter. And because I don't want to call out any specific EdTech and miss out others, please though, imagine my emails on this chat somewhere. And so feel free to reach out, and if I can't help you, I might be able to connect you with other people who can. Kia ora.
Yeah, kapai, thank you, Shannon, for that information. And whānau, if you're interested in either getting involved with EdTech NZ or even registering, I'd probably encourage you all to do that. If you are working in this space, then please do reach out to Shannon at some point. Ali, I want to check you on the spot here. We've got a couple of minutes to spare, but I'm really keen to hear from the Te Ao Matihiko kind of perspective, and what we're doing in this kind of education space. Futures Wānanga is one of those things, but yeah, give us the update, sis.
Oh, bro. Yeah.
I told you I'd put you on the spot.
Aira. Oh, look, there's so much stuff going down now. Obviously, are we just talking about it from an educational perspective and educational engagement?
Yep.
Well, obviously, we have all our Mātauranga sessions. We're also working on the policy pathways and research side. I've got to be honest with you, there's so many people around the motu. Sorry, I'm on economic development mahi, so I'm out on the farm at the moment. There are so many people around the motu that's doing stuff. Our goal is to platform those people, that is to ensure that we're having the kōrero, that we understand what's happening so that we can whakamana them ne. That's so important. That's bro. That's one of the reasons why we came together and put everything together was to whakamana the mahi that's already been done. Because I don't think there's anybody here that thinks they got all the answers, and if they are, they're a bit of a dickhead, because that's not how it's rolling, Everyone's just doing choice as mahi all around. So we've got, there's a number of things coming up. We've got the Woven Cultures mahi that's happening down with us down in Otautahi. So we've partnered with Tangata Moana, with Nina and her crew down there. They're pretty choice as. And so what we're doing is it's once again what everybody else is doing, which is that connection of industry, not only through to our schools, but also through to our career changes, and then moving through to tertiary, and then obviously into jobs. But as you know, then there's the cultural readiness piece. Then there's are they ready for those people? How does that work? So I think our goal here at the moment is moving from just connecting things together to ensuring that we're solidifying tangible, ongoing connections, because as you know, our industries come into our schools, paitera, they might run a 6 to 7 to 8 week course and then they out. So, what does long-term look like? Because we can inspire and do all the choices, inspiring stuff all we want, but what's the actual tangible stuff at the end of it? And I think that's where a lot of our mahi is currently focused on, is the solidification of the tangible, the ongoing, because all the kaupapa that we're working on is legacy mahi. It's all about our moko ne. So, what else we got going? Oh, there's too many, bro. What are you even talking about? We've got the futures, we've got another e-power wars, we've got, there's so many things. But what I'm interested in is all of those ones who are doing something. I think we're all interested in the ones who are doing. And we just want to know what you're doing, so that we can come and either whakamana you, or we can help in any way, or you can come and help us. It's that reciprocity in the mahitahi, and it's all puku mahi at the moment, I mean, I think we all understand that, those of us who live in the kaupapa-led life. So yeah, we just need to come together a little bit more. I'm sorry, bro. I know there's a list, and I'm sure Katie will have my thing for not going through it, but yeah, is what it is.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the update. Appreciate it. So we've come to, we're actually doing well for time. So it's my pleasure to now welcome our STEM manuhiri into this space, Aroha Te Kanoa. And thank you for your patience, by the way, who I really, really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom, but also insights about this very important kaupapa called WIPSI. Hey, before you get started, I did just want to say that there has been some interest shown from our hapori or our community members around in relation to this very kaupapa, and hence why we pulled this very session together. So we've had a bit of a kōrero about some parts of Indigenous tech and education, talked about some of the risks and challenges, had a bit of an update from the EdTech NZ side. So it's really just a way for us to springboard now and segue into this very important kōrero with you, Aroha. So I wanted to start off with if you could just perhaps give us an idea, a bit of general information about WIPSI itself, but also I'm really keen to hear what is it that makes it special. You've been involved with this kaupapa for over 20 years. What is it that is special that stands out in your mai? Tēnā koe.
Kia ora anō. So for WIPSI, the WIPSI, the acronym for World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education, this will be the 38th year that it was sort of started, and it was really based on by Indigenous, for Indigenous. It's now become the largest Indigenous gathering in the world. I've been on the council since 2014. So what we've done has been really proactive around making sure that our Indigenous voices are heard. We've been quite robust in our process of our council to ensure that, for example, previous WIPSI, and we've had probably since 1987, it's every 3 years. So usually there's a tono from a country, and it's usually Aotearoa, although the last time it was here in 2005, Te Wānanga Aotearoa won the bid. I was very lucky to organise that conference. We didn't know how many to expect. Well, we got over 4,000. So it's a huge undertaking. And obviously you need an organisation that can underwrite it first. But the wānanga was very pivotal to ensure that, we wanted to welcome our global manuhiri, and we had themes. We also had a WIPSI academic committee, which is representation across the universities in the wānanga, which is really important. Whilst there is a host, it is also very important for us that this is on behalf of Te Ao Māori. So when our whānau, global whānau come here in November, they don't remember really the host, they remember the country. So that to me is really important. This year we won the bid for, AUT won the bid to bring it back to Aotearoa. It will be here in November. It will start with the pōwhiri, Ngāti Whātua will host, and it'll go from Monday through to Thursday at the Aotea Centre in Auckland. We're expecting probably 2,000. Hard to say after COVID. It's affected budgets and all of that, but at the moment I think we've got about 1,000 who are registered, which is interesting because the abstracts are still not selected. We're calling for abstracts. There is 8 themes, and it closes the 30th of April. Now, if you are lucky to be, we got about 2,500, I remember, back in 2005. And our poor academic committee had to work all weekend to select around 450. So the conference is, around 450 presentations. We will also have poster presentations. We have 8 keynote speakers and 4 inspirational speakers. Now, 2005, one of the inspirational speakers was the first Indigenous astronaut. So, it was just amazing sort of inspirational. We're not sort of, WIPSI is a movement, and I want to sort of steer away from this conference kind of narrative, very academic. Yes, it is an academic conference, but we encourage communities. The most important thing about our WIPSI conference, the point of difference, is the WIPSI Village, which we set up at Altair Square. And it will have a cultural, arts, crafts, performances. We will then also have cultural excursions. That is also part of the conference. Getting out to our communities. It's not going into a conference and sitting there for 4 days. So there's all those opportunities. And then we'll have a closing ceremony along with the Parade of Nations. So it's more about coming together and celebrating our indigeneity. And that's probably the key to the success of WIPSI. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. The themes, there's 8 themes. One is in science and technology. We also will have sort of a youth lounge, elder lounge, a sponsors lounge. But in the past, WIPSI, since I've been involved back in 2005, it's been in Melbourne, Cusco. Cusco was probably the biggest shambles, but it was what we remember the most is the people. So, and then Hawaii, Toronto, and Adelaide. So, yeah, I've been very, I mean, I don't want to brag, but I think the WIPSI in 2005 was the best because of the WIPSI Village. That was the heart of the conference. And so the program for November is pretty much the same. But one thing that we're very staunch about is those who present must be Indigenous. They have to be the lead presenter. They have to show their Indigenous, their whakapapa. That was the last time that happened was when we did it in 2005. So we've been to other conferences where we have non-Indigenous talking about how they're going to save Indigenous people. So we're very staunch here in Aotearoa. And so we probably get less abstracts. But yeah, that's pretty much the overview of the program for WIPSI. So we're looking forward to it.
Awesome, Kapai. Thank you for those that information there. Well, hey, do you have any kind of tips maybe for our Hapuri community members online around abstract submission? Have you seen anything in the past where you've observed that there's certain things that the committee are deciding on those abstracts might kind of be more open to? Anything, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So we've been quite strict on the application, like we've limited the words, because you can imagine the last time we would have 10 pages of something. But yeah, the key for our academic committee is Indigenous research. If you can show your Indigenous research, that would be definitely favourable. We don't mind if it's more than one presenter. And it's got to be Indigenous. It's got to be presented by an Indigenous person. So it's very hard to kind of put as long as you can prove the research, our the ones that we've accepted now, there are some very, very clear ones that will get in. And we've had some that's a magician, for example, that is non-Indigenous but wants us to, so we'll get a whole variety. So it'll go through a very robust selection. But for the tips, everything is on the website. There is an info email if there's any questions about abstracts. You can send an email that will be directed to the WIPSI Academic Committee. The best way to be involved with WIPSI is to register your interest, so you're kept up to date with key dates. If you are accepted, I don't know if I've said this, but your registration will remain as early bird, because now we're into standard registrations. So yeah, as far as tips, I think the uniqueness about our Indigenous Mātauranga is probably up there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Aroha, for that information. That's really useful for our community. And I hope and encourage our hapori to have a look into this abstract submission process. I just want to, we've shared the links to the website,
Yes.
etc., into the chat, but we'll also share it with an email after this event so that our people have everything that they need to get to have a look and perhaps get involved. But I did just want to read out the 8 themes. The first one is education systems and practices, youth. Second one, third is environment and climate. Fourth is politics, self-determinations and decolonization, creative arts and media, health and well-being, one that's very close to my heart, linguistic and cultural revitalization, and the last one that's probably of most relevance to us all is science and technology. So kia kaha rā koutou mā, o te hapori. Please do have a look into it, and please do, we encourage you to submit an abstract submission if you're able. Hey, thanks so much, Aroha. We're on time. We've got 5 minutes to take any pārtai. I noticed that there hasn't been any pārtai put into the chat, which is all good. So e te iwi, if you have any pārtai to ask, please do unmute your microphone and ask our panelists. Ali had to leave early, so she's gone already, but we've got Shannon and Aroha with us still, and of course myself as well. Nō reira, he pārtai, tā koutou. Awesome. Not very unusual. But that's okay, because we might be able to give you 5 minutes back in your day, whānau. Going once, going twice, third time, and we're good, and then I can close us out. Tanya, you can get on what you can do is send us perhaps send us an email, or we can put you in touch with the panelists as well. Thank you so much for joining us too, Tanya. You're such a supporter of this kaupapa, and it's awesome to see you join us each and every session.